Thinking about a year ago this time, literally a year ago this month, Pastor Mona and I were driving. We had a friend come in from New Zealand, and we were taking him out to lunch, and I don't know why we were on that side, but we were over near the airport, behind it, where all those little sort of roads go, and that's not an area that I drive in often. And he's in the back seat, she's in the front seat, and we just driving along. We had already had lunch. It was a late lunch, and the sun was still up, and it wasn't a lot of traffic, which is a surprise, right? And you know how you just kind of looking, and you could see it's like, and you know, you're watching the road, and so I'm watching the road just going. And Pastor Mona says, "Look out." And she says, "You see that? You see that?" When I tell you I didn't see it. There was a truck that had pulled into a parking lot off the side of the road. And I don't even know what kind of truck it was, but it was a truck, a large truck. And it had this big piping about this wide. And it went from the truck and it stuck all the way out to the middle of the road. And it was head level. When I tell you my life flashed before my eyes, I knew it was nothing but God's protection, because I would have driven on it without seeing it. It was right underneath the vision of sight, and I don't see any cars. It's like there's nothing underneath it, so I didn't see it. But how many know God's protection? God's protection. Not only is God faithful as it relates to his protection, but his provision. We see God blessing Joseph and favoring Joseph so that Joseph is everything that Joseph needs while he's away from home. Everything that Joseph has won for. The Bible lets us know that God caused Joseph to have success or to prosper, meaning that every one of Joseph's needs were met. That doesn't just mean physical. He had a physical needs were met, but everything he needed spiritually was met too. Everything he needed on the inside, being in that kind of situation, in that kind of environment, God met every one of his needs. And guess what? God is the same God. He shows his faithfulness to you and I by meeting all of our needs. Not some of them, not just financial, but emotional. Not just emotional, but spiritual. Not just spiritual, but relational. God is with us and shows his faithfulness by meeting our needs, by his provision. I thought about all three of our children when we had all three of our children, what God did to show his faithfulness to us. Sometimes you have to look back in your own life and remember the things that the Lord has done for you. And I remember when we were pregnant with our first child, and we were struggling, y'all. And I can't remember if it was then or in college when we tried to get welfare and they turned us down. But how poor you got to be to get welfare? So our first year of having a child, both of us were working in non-traditional roles, teaching. And so that meant I was at a Christian school, and Pastor Mona was working more in the library as an assistant. And so that meant we both got paid. Y'all know teachers don't make a lot of money. Remember that when you vote. Okay. So what happened was, we're like, I don't know how we're going to be able to afford childcare. And I remember our pastor saying to us, God is better than welfare. He knows, welfare likes to add more money on when you have another child, but how many know that God, he don't need you to be on welfare to add to you? He knows how to add to you. You have another child, he knows how to add enough to feed that child. And we saw God do it. I remember that when a babysitter came, and one of the ladies at the church we were going to said, "Listen, you bring Brandon over to me. I'll babysit him. I work at nighttime. I watch him during the daytime." How many of y'all know this woman watched him for $35 a week? Oh, it gets better than that. She said, "Oh, I see y'all work hard," because we were traveling back and forth to Brooklyn, an hour and a half each way. She told Pastor Mona, she said, "Just bring me the meal you plan on cooking at night. I'll cook it for you, that when you come and pick Brandon up, your food will be ready." I know God as a provider. She watched him all the way through till we moved to Georgia. And when we moved to Georgia, Pastor Mona was pregnant with Chantel. And I told y'all, we both got hired by Cobb County, and it was a decrease from a New York salary. And so, because we eventually moved up in New York, and when I got my first paycheck, I cried. I looked at it, I cried. Because I'm like, this is, for the month, I was used to that every 2 weeks in New York. So I said, and then I cried all over again, because I thought, oh no, that's what she's getting, her paycheck is going to say the same thing as mine. And it did. But let me tell you how faithful God is. The following year, when Pastor Mona moved from Cobb County and started working in Atlanta, there were some kids at her school there, that they had siblings and different ones who went to this daycare. Well, one of the parents came up. Pastor Mona actually had the director's parents and a child in her class, and she met and all that. Do you know the woman offered, we didn't ask, the woman offered that we could bring Chantel, our second child, to the daycare, and she said, this is how much it costs, just pay whatever you have. Now, it was in the hood, but it was a blessing. It's true. It was definitely a hood, but it was a blessing. You know, you can't be picky on how you be blessed. You know, you take your blessing and then thank God for protection.